All right, Econ 1015. Welcome to week 4. Here we are, over halfway through this short uh, semester, this mini one semester. And so last week you had a discussion, and you may notice that I didn't prod you during this discussion. I wanted to let your conversation kind of develop organically without me driving the discussion. I was pleased with some of the responses. I was pleased with some of the engagement, but there's still much work to do. So make sure this week you have a challenging discussion, another one on ethics, an ethical situation that you may have seen in your own workplace or in your own life. So make sure that you dig a little deeper in this discussion, as I say. Make sure that you do some research. Make sure that you push your fellow classmates, question, support with research, or you may object to something they say or disagree with it, but use your research to back up your position. Otherwise, as I said before, it's merely opinion. All right, so you also have an informational interview due this week. This can be on any job position that you want. But make sure you get good access. Make sure you get in and you talk to somebody. And there's a list of questions you can ask there in the assignment, but what I don't want to see is just your list of questions and the answer that you got from the person you're interviewing. I want you to conduct the interview, and that becomes your work product. The outcome of that ought to be a 2 to 3 page written paper that kind of describes what you took away from it. I don't want you to use just their words, although you can use some quotes, but I want you to synthesize that information and extract from it the true meaning, what you get from it. Make sure you use the book as a reference or any other material that you want to help support what that interview is telling you and what it means to you, what it means to the workplace. So spend some time doing that. And you also have exam 2 due this week, so make sure that you prepare for that. Remember, it's open book, open notes, but do your own work and take your time on that. Make sure you analyze the question and answer it appropriately. All right, so let's talk about this week. This week we've got chapters 9 and 10. In chapter 9, we're going to look at the process of attracting and retaining employees. And in chapter 10, we're going to talk about the topic of motivation. So I want to give you an example of attracting and retaining employees. So to me, one of the key things that a manager and a leader will ever do is the hiring process, hiring the right people. And I always say that a good manager's responsibility is to put the right people in the right place at the right time with the right skill sets and the right training to do the right job. It's as simple as that. Very complicated. I always say that management would be easy if it wasn't for people. So we have this element of having to understand people, one, and then having to match those people that we have in a candidate pool to the job. So let's think about this process. The first thing you have to consider is, where are you going to advertise? To whom? Are you going to make a selection just from internal resources, a promotion, if you will? Are you going to open it up to outside resources and make it more competitive? So we may think about how our workplace looks now. Can we have a viable candidate pool just from inside? And is that the right thing to do? If it's just 1 or 2 people that may be up for the promotion, are you doing the best thing for the organization by just limiting it to those 2 people? Certainly we want to provide for advancement opportunities within the organization, but you have to weigh that with getting the best candidate in the position. Once we've decided where we're going to advertise and how, then we start the process. Initially looking at resumes. We'll rack and stack them. We'll evaluate them. But that evaluation criteria ought to be based on what are the key parameters of the job. In many cases, like in the government, they'll talk about KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. And often these things are automatically screened by some system and never even looked at by a human being. So you must address those KSAs and their importance to executing the job, and that allows the candidate pool to be narrowed down to some subset. So now we get into, we've gotten the candidates in, we've reviewed the resumes, and we may come up with 5 to 10 people to interview. So what do? We have to take a look at what are the objective questions we can ask every candidate to make it fair for everybody, and also to make it where everybody who sits in on that interview should come up with a very similar outcome. They should grade those people that are presenting themselves before you in a similar fashion. Certainly there are going to be differences in the scoring a little bit, but it shouldn't be that varied. And that will allow you now to come down to who is the actual best candidate for the job. And then you make a selection on that. So you'll find that over time, these processes that you put in place in the workplace, if they are fair and equitable and repeatable over time, they'll be more accepted by the workforce. Certainly, we all know that in a hiring process, there's only one person that's going to be absolutely satisfied with the process, and that's the person who got selected. But as long as everybody else involved in the process can believe that they had a fair shot and they just fell short, then they'll understand that the process works. And they'll walk away with the knowledge of what they need to do to better themselves the next time. So I look forward to seeing your work this week. I look forward to seeing your discussions and having conversation with you about these things. And as always, I hope you have a great week.